Hello, this is Randy here. I finally got up the courage to share some very deep and personal information about myself. First of all, I would like to thank Astro Boo Baby and all of the other members here on the forums for their unconditional love and support. In this video, I will share my MRI images that I have obtained. I want to help give people a better understanding and overstanding of what I have and what I go through. Yeah, I have neurofibromatosis type 1. That's spelled NEUROFIBROMATOSIS. Is a genetic disability that causes tumors to grow on the inside of the body or the outside of your body. Basically, anywhere where there's a nerve, these tumors can grow. That's why it has the root word neuro, which means pertaining to the nerves. I've also found some images from Google to compare my MRI to a normal MRI of what my neck is supposed to look like. And I've also found a diagram of the spinal column on Google where I outline my damage using that map that I found. These images are not for the faint of heart, but this was something that robbed me of my health. Literally, in 2009. I've had this all my life, but it started off slow and gradually progressed and finally sped up and got out of control in 2009. And for those that don't know, May is Neurofibromatosis Awareness Month for the Little Tumor Foundation, for the hospitals that treat this genetic disability. For those that recently added me as friends on Facebook, might have noticed that I have a green ribbon as a profile picture. It's the color that they use for Neurofibromatosis Awareness Month. Here's an MRI of my neck. This is from 2010, a few months after my first surgery. Notice how my discs are relatively intact, but slowly starting to shift a little bit. This was when I was skinny. You see how the muscles in my neck are all small and thin. And here's a tiny little tumor that's right here. This is an MRI, the front view of my body from approximately the bridge of my nose on down to my chest area. Right here is my left arm, my left shoulder. Here's my right arm, my right shoulder. These are the cervical nerves, the nerves that branch off the spinal cord from the neck, branching off into the arms. These little white bubbly spots, they're all tumors from my genetic condition that's pronounced neurofibromatosis. Here's the spinal cord here, and here's tumor that's growing off the spinal nerve roots. When I had my first surgery, it was much more extensive and far more complicated than just simply removing a tumor off my spinal cord. As you can see in the previous images, that there were a whole lot of tumors, innumerable amount of tumors. I had to have a cervical laminectomy so the surgeons could get to my spinal cord and do the work. But this is an example of what they did. They had to cut off the spinal vertebra to alleviate the pressure off my spinal cord and decompress it the best they can. and I had a bone fusion. Here's another diagram of a cervical laminectomy from a side view. And finally, another diagram of a cervical laminectomy. Here's a map of the entire spine in a human body. The C stands for cervical nerves, near your neck. The T stands for thoracic nerves, near your upper to mid back. And the L stands for lumbar nerves, near your lower back. And the S stands for sacral nerves, near your tailbone, your pelvis. The C1, C2 nerves controls the head and neck motion. The C3 controls the breathing, which is the diaphragm. The C4 are your deltoids and the biceps and the shoulders. The C6 are your wrist extenders. That's the ability to put your wrist down and bring it back up to flex it. The C7 are your triceps. And the C8 nerve root control your hand, the fingers in the hand. The T2 to T7 nerves control your chest muscles. The T7 nerves, the T12 nerves control your abdominal muscles. The lumbar nerves in your lumbar spine control your leg muscles. And the sacral nerves at S1 and S2. And S3 controls your bowel and bladder. And your S3, S4, and S5 controls your sexual function, as you can see noted in this diagram here. Here's an MRI of my pelvis. These here are my kidneys. My soft spinal disc, this is a front view. These little huge bubbles here are the tumors. Down here is my pelvic area. The reproductive function, the bowel and bladder. This is the same area advanced one frame. Right here is my belly button. The kidneys where the tumors are branching off, the nerve roots in my belly button. Right here is where the spinal cord branches off into the legs. And right here is the pelvic area. Finally advance one last frame. You see that there are tumors everywhere that are innumerable. Your tiny little ones here. All this here just the muscles that's in my body. Technically, your spinal cord ends at L2. Just below your belly button. And then this tiny little nerves that branch off. A whole lot of tiny little nerves that branch off. That's called the quadra equina. That's Latin for horsetail. Just like a horse's tail has a whole lot of hairs coming off to the tails. The same thing here with your spinal nerve roots. This is an MRI of my complete spine. This is the front of my body, the back of my body, the tumors up here, slight deterioration and compression because my disc had shift. I have degenerative disc disease as a collateral cause and effect from having this genetic disability. The spinal cord's okay here. My soft discs are okay. My vertebrae's okay. And down here at around L1, L2, you see more deterioration of the spinal cord due to the tumors. And this is my pelvis and sacral nerves. You see the tumors just totally obliterated on. This is my stomach, my abdominal muscles. Yeah, the kind of procedure that I had was far more complex than just removing a few simple tumors. Yeah, I'm making this video so people can get a better understanding and overstanding of what I have and what I deal with and put up with every day with having this. This is the same spinal diagram, but I just painted over it a little bit. The black lines up here indicates the spinal injury, the spinal cord injury that I had that was related to the surgery and a collateral damage that took place over the years from aging and my disc degenerating and my scoliosis and the other complications that I have with having this illness, neurofibromatosis, indicated in the black up here. And sort of the dark red, reddish brown. This drawing right here, this painting right here. This is just due to the tumor alone of what's going on. Man, it's a struggle every day if people only knew. Last and not least, this is an MRI of my brain. This view is the top of my head. This here is a tiny little dot. Tiny little pimples. Tiny little formations right here that's starting to grow. Right here is the outside of my skull. Those little tiny white spots you see, micro dots, are tiny little pimples of tumors that's beginning to form. This right here is the back of my head. This is my brain, and here's a tiny little dot right here. And down here are huge tumors that's in my neck that's starting to grow. They're starting to grow towards my spinal cord. I'm going to eventually have to have a third surgery as a result of this. It's so difficult to get people to understand the seriousness of this and grasp the enormity of having a very bad, serious case of something like this. Yet to pronounce it again, I have neurofibromatosis type 1. Now a short recap of what had happened to me over the past 6.5 years. This October will be 7 years. I had tumors that grew on my spinal nerve roots, and they grew larger and larger and larger to the point where they started to compress on my spinal cord. I had to get them surgically removed, and my spinal cord decompressed. And I went physical therapy for years and years, and I got a little bit better and stronger. And then the same thing started to happen again in 2014. I had my second surgery. They quit that just in time. And then the same thing's happening again in 2016. I might have to get a third surgery, but this is a preventative surgery. To anybody here on these forums that has a genetic disability that could be potentially fatal, I would just like them to know that they're not alone, that I'm struggling with one myself. A number of things that could happen to me that could end this physical incarnation as a result of having this. It's a very long, hard, and tough road. I'm struggling to keep my head above water, but it gets even more difficult as the years go on. I'm hoping that this will eventually stop growing and progressing and get under control much sooner rather than later.